All right, everybody, welcome back to Horn Takes. Going to do the bullpen today. Texas takes the series from KU 2-1 on the road, and they're looking to get hot at the end of the season at the right time for postseason. So let's get into it. KU series, we talked about it, that we said this should be a series that Texas should win. We think it's a series that Texas should probably sweep, but we feel like Texas's pitching has been inconsistent enough that we're going to go ahead and give Kansas a win. And that's pretty much what happened. What I was surprised about was which pitcher it was that struggled. And we'll get into that in just a second. Pierce really shifted the lineup for this series. Jared Thomas moved to the leadoff spot. Kennedy, who has been the leadoff for most of the season, and then hit in the 2-hole or the 3-hole once Campbell moved to the leadoff. He moved down to the 6-hole, and then Daly moved down to the 9-hole. So game one started out with a big old L for Texas. They lost that game 10-4. It's the first time Lucas Gordon has looked human this season. It was his first loss of the season. And Lucas gave up 9 hits, 3 walks, 6 runs on 4 2/3 innings. It was not good. KU was on him, man. They were making lots of contact, putting the ball in play a lot, and putting the ball in play really hard. I think Gordon just kind of had an off night, off day, so to speak. It happens. But they really got to him, really busted him up, and the offense was obviously pretty pedestrian. There wasn't a whole lot going on offensively. Give up 10 runs, and generally you're probably not going to win the game. But you're definitely not going to win the game giving up 10 runs if you don't score very many either. So that was game one. Real disappointing. I thought, at that point in the series, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, man, our best guy just got busted up by this team. And we had talked about, KU not really being a very good hitting team. I guess the old saying goes, the sun shines on a dog's ass every now and again. And that's what happened. Game 2, Texas goes out, gets a 6-2 win. I thought LBJ was absolutely brilliant in this game. He gave up 4 hits, had 12 Ks, and only 1 run allowed through 7 innings of pitching. They just absolutely couldn't touch basically anything he was throwing. And that's the LBJ that we've seen it a few times this year. We've seen it in multiple roles. We've seen this guy come out of the bullpen. We've seen this guy be a midweek starter. We've seen him be a weekend starter. Then we've seen him go back into the bullpen or back to the midweek. He's not perfect at all, but I love the way LBJ competes. I think when he's on, there's not too many guys. There's probably only a handful of guys that when LBJ is on are better than him. That's the type of upside he has. Thomas, who just got moved into that number 1 hole, the leadoff hole for this series, went 4 for 5 with an RBI. And then Mitchell Daly, someone, we usually don't talk positively about, not because we hate Mitchell Daly. He just doesn't do a lot of positive stuff, especially at the plate. He capped off a 5-run fourth with a 2-run RBI single that kind of, really stretched it out, gave Texas not an insurmountable lead, but definitely gave them some cushion there in the 5th. So big inning there offensively. They didn't do much the rest of the game, obviously. Game 3, this was an interesting one. Texas wins this one 7-6. Tanner Witt got the start again on Sunday. For those of you that, I don't know, you don't follow Texas baseball or you just didn't know, Tanner Witt also pitched an inning it would have been Monday because they had their games pushed. But he pitched the third game, started the third game of the series 2 weekends ago, and pitched an inning. He's still struggling. 31 pitches. He had 3 walks, 1 hit, 1 run. The 3 walks is what's concerning. And again, man, I can't even imagine having to come back from that type of injury. And there's just a trust factor that you gotta learn to trust that elbow again. Not only that, but you got to be completely rusty. I mean, this guy is probably used to throwing. He's a big time D1 pitcher. He's probably used to throwing almost every single day in some form or fashion. To go from that to absolutely you cannot throw, and then now we're going to ease you in, and then yeah, you can throw off the mound a little bit now, and then yeah, you can do a full bullpen. So now he's taking the next step, which is get in the game and throw some pitches in a live scenario. Thomas had another good game. He and Powell, who hits in the 2-hole, they were both 3 for 5. And Guillemette and Kennedy sort of led the way with RBIs with 3 and 2 respectively. This was a game that Texas had a big lead. And then KU just kind of chipped away. I think they scored 3 runs over the final 2 innings, 1 in the 8th, 2 in the 9th. Made it real close. All in all, the series just win, right? At this point in the season, it doesn't really matter, especially for Texas. Now, there are other teams that are either on the bubble or teams that are right there on the bubble for a number 1 national seed, that type of stuff. In a position where you might not just host a regional, but you might host a super regional if you continue to advance. A lot of those guys got to win pretty, and they need to do more, right? Texas is probably not hosting a regional. They're definitely not hosting a super regional. I won't say definitely. It's probably not going to happen, though. So they just need to keep winning. And they did that. They went and won 2 out of 3 on the road. Not a great team, but hey, they did what they needed to do. They had a midweek with Arlington, UT Arlington this week. They won that one 10-5. Charlie Hurley got the start. He gave up 2 runs and 5 hits through 5 innings. Powell started the team off offensively with an absolute nuke to right center field. He crushed the ball. He's hit a lot of balls really hard this year, but I think that might be the hardest ball I've seen him hit this year. It was like an Ivan Melendez type bomb. It was a piss missile, as they say. The top of the order was really good in this game, and really the top of the order has been good all season long. There's been little times where the top of the order has missed and it's affected the team. But generally, the top of the order has been outstanding. Really, now that the lineup's been reshuffled a little bit, those guys 1 through 6 in the order are all hitting over 300. So that group of guys, that nucleus is doing really, really good. They're producing a lot for Texas. And again, the bottom half was not. And so I think it's great that you have a really solid top of the order, but I think you need more consistency throughout the lineup. And Texas just absolutely does not have those bottom, 2 or 3 guys really struggling. We also saw Jalen Flores play for Mitch Daly in this game. And we actually saw Flores come in late in the game in game 3 up in Kansas. And that has to be 100% due to the fact that Daly's bat is just absolutely not producing. So I don't know if it's going to be one of those situations where he's just sitting him for a little bit to wake him up, or if he's legitimately giving Jalen Flores a chance to maybe take that spot. I know so far Jalen Flores hasn't done a whole lot from the bat, from the plate, to say this is the guy that you got to put in now. Daly just can't do it. So we move on to the San Jose State series. That's happening literally right now up on screen. They had to start this game early. We'll get into that. San Jose State's a 23-22 team, so they're just about a 500 team. Look back at their schedule, and there's really nothing impressive on their resume. As a matter of fact, I think Air Force is probably the best team they've played all season. So the competition that San Jose State is playing against is not good at all. They're batting 280 as a team. The top of the lineup actually looks really salty from a stats perspective. Not a ton of power, just a lot of contact, a lot of base hits. They got 3 guys over 300, which is okay. They have a 5.44 team ERA, and again, that's the one that, for me, I look at this team and say, yikes, because they have not played a lot of even decent teams. So to me, this is a series that, Texas should absolutely sweep this series. The game times kind of got pushed or rearranged because of excuse me, because of weather. What's up, Chris? They were supposed to play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Now they're playing Friday 2 p.m., which is obviously this one just started, and I think Texas is winning right now 2-0. I don't know what's happened since the last inning, but they're going to play 2:00 today, and then a 6:30 p.m. today, and then Saturday to be announced. And I don't know what the weather looks like down in Austin. I think Sunday's supposed to be like just a no-go. I don't know what Saturday's supposed to look like. I'm assuming that's why there's a to be announced, because they don't know exactly when the best time is to get that game in. All these games are going to be on Longhorn Network. So if you're a Texas Longhorn fan, you got Longhorn Network. Want to see some baseball? Check them out on the Longhorn Network. 2 p.m., 6:30 p.m., and to be announced tomorrow. My prediction, I think the top of the order is going to feast all weekend. And I think the Texas pitching staff will do just enough where we usually see that one inconsistent game. I think they'll handle their business, and I think Texas sweeps San Jose State in this series. State of the program address. We do this every single week. We talk about where Texas is today in baseball. Well, they're 33-17. They're unranked. They're 4th in the Big 12 at 12-9. I think the top of the Big 12 kind of looks like a logjam right now. We're going to know a lot more after this weekend what the final weekend of Big 12 play really looks like and who's really in contention anymore. But right now, it looks like there's 4 teams. Actually, there's 5 teams, because Tech is sitting there Tech's sitting in the 5th spot just behind Texas. They might have a legit shot if they can take care of business against West Virginia this weekend. It's a big if. West Virginia, for whatever, they're playing really good baseball right now. But if things go right, Texas and West Virginia could be playing for the regular season title next weekend. It's a long shot, I think. Even if West Virginia gets swept by Tech, I still think you have to look at what Kansas State and Oklahoma State are doing this weekend. So, like I said, it's kind of a log jam, and it could go a lot of different ways. After this weekend, though, we'll have a really clear picture. We'll talk about it on the podcast next week on the bullpen. We'll talk about if Texas even has a shot, and if they do, what they have to do to be the regular season champ. Texas batting 292 as a team right now. That's 80th in the country. You look at, there's a lot of baseball teams in the country, and there's not a huge difference between Texas at 80 and whoever the number 1 team is. I think the number 1 team is batting 328 right now. Not a massive difference. Good enough. I mean, big enough, right? But it's not like we're talking, 80 from 1 sounds like a huge number, but really it's not a big number. Right now, Texas has those 6 guys batting over 300, which for the longest time, you really had 2 guys batting over 200. Powell and Kennedy. And then Campbell started getting hot. He got up there. Now you got Guillemette doing it. You got Jared Thomas, the freshman, out of the lead, out of the leadoff position. He's batting like 419 or something like that since they moved him to the leadoff position. And then you got Mitchell Daly, who's the low man at 226, the junior, the guy that's been, this is his third year as a starter at Texas. And man, like I said, he's just really struggled at the plate. It just hasn't come together for him. And I think that's why you saw him sit for a game and change. I haven't seen yet if he's in this game. Team ERA 4.09. That's good for 21st in the country. I think you look at the pitching rotation. You look at the starters. You got Lucas Gordon and LBJ that are both really, really solid. I think you can depend. I think you can depend on those guys to go out and get you innings, get you outs, keep the game from, spiraling out of control or anything like that. Those two guys, I feel comfortable when they're on the mound. And I don't know what LBJ did to ever get pulled out of the starting lineup. So again, let's backtrack earlier this season. LBJ at the beginning of the season was a bullpen guy. And then he quickly moved himself into the midweek starter role. And he did awesome. And then so I started talking about, man, I wonder if Pierce is going to give him a shot at the weekend because he's doing so well. And then we saw a series where one of the weekend starters actually started during the week. And I was like, this is it. LBJ is about to be the starter, one of the weekend starters. And he did fine. And he only did that for a couple weekends. And then he went back to this sort of, I don't know, like Iron Man role where he does just whatever. He didn't really do anything, I thought, to get pulled from that starting rotation, but he did. And now he's back. He's kicking ass, and I like it. You look at our day 3 starter right now, and it's just a mess. We don't know. Witt's going to start all these games going forward, provided he stays healthy. He's going to start. He's going to pitch an inning or so. Probably depends a lot on his pitch count. Like, I think if he originally, when he came back, they wanted to give him about 20 pitches. I think he pitched 23 pitches. And then last week he had 33 pitches in 1 inning. I think if Witt goes out and gets 3 ground balls in a row on 3 pitches, he's coming back in the 2nd inning. But either way, he's super inconsistent. He, like we talked about, he's knocking off all this rust. He's having to deal with the mental aspect of coming back from an injury like that. So I don't expect, and no Longhorn should expect, no fan of the Texas Longhorn should expect Tanner Witt to give us much. The rest, I don't think even the rest of the season. I mean, there's a month and a half left in this season, roughly. I don't think Tanner Witt plays a huge role in Texas's season going forward. But I think he will be the 3rd day starter, and as he progresses and starts to feel good, maybe that extends a little bit. Staley comes in behind him. And Staley is a guy that, man, started out the season, he would have 1 rough inning. And then he would settle in. It was always usually early in the game, 1st or 2nd inning. And he would get refocused and get settled in, and he could give you some innings. He's just kind of fallen apart lately. We don't really know. He's a guy that when he steps on the mound, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know at all if he's going to be able to throw strikes. If when he does throw strikes, they're going to beat him up. Is he going to walk everybody? Is he going to hit people? You just don't know. So I think every 3rd game going forward for this team is going to be real rocky. And it's going to be a platoon style effort by the bullpen. You're just going to see a lot of pitchers every third day. We're close enough to postseason now. Let's talk about the prospects for this team from a postseason perspective. We started off the year and we said, man, we watched a few games, and to me, the team looked like a 500 team, a team that I did not think was gonna press to even be in the postseason. And then they had that stretch, I don't know, 16, 17 game winning streak, maybe 18 game winning streak. They had a long homestand, and they beat a lot of teams, and they beat some good ones too. I mean, there were some teams that didn't have great baseball teams that they played and won against, but they also beat some good teams, and they competed. They've been competitive all year. There's only been a couple games this year where they've just shit the bed, and like you just said, man, they're not going to win this game. There's no way. They've been in every single game for the most part this year. But now you look at them, they're 33-17. They've got a shot to win the Big 12 regular season title. They're 100% going to be in the tournament at this point. Can this team make some noise? Is this a team that can get into the tournament and be one of those teams that we see every single year that gets hot at the right time and makes some noise? Let's talk about it. I think there's still an outside shot that they could host a regional. It's a long shot, but it's there. If they want to do that, they absolutely cannot lose another regular season game. So they're going to have to sweep this San Jose State series, and they're going to have to sweep West Virginia at home next weekend. Texas does not have a midweek this week. So I think they need to sweep the regular season. They need to finish that out with no losses. And they need to show really well in the Big 12 tournament. And I think, to me, that means winding up in the finals again. Last year, Texas was 5th in the Big 12 regular season, got into the Big 12 tournament, played in the final. They had that regional. They cruised through their regional, and then they had that awesome, just really, I think either way for either fans, they had that awesome super regional tournament. There's just bombs away. So many home runs in that tournament. So much offense in that tournament. I believe they lost the opener in the super regional, and then they won back to back. And the third one I think it's the third one they won. I was at baseball tournaments with my son, so I wasn't watching any of this. I was listening on the radio, and so my days may be getting confused, or my games may be getting confused. At some point in there was a historic type comeback for Texas. So they really eked through that super regional to get into the College World Series, but they did it. Last I saw, this team is projected to be a 2 seed at a regional. But again, I think there's just a tiny shred of hope that they can do enough to maybe host a region. Super regional, out the door. Unless, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the super regionals are only set if one of those number 1 seeds gets out of the region. Then after that, I think it resets to the higher seed. Maybe. And right now, I think Texas, the last little graph I saw, they were like, they were like a 23rd overall seed or something like that. I don't know. So again, I think getting into the tournament, not a question. I think they could lose every single game. Every single game in the regular season from here on out. They're still going to get in the tournament. And when you get in the tournament, what do we say? Just get hot. Just win, baby. Just keep winning games. Once the tournament starts, the season doesn't matter anymore. All the positive things you did don't matter anymore. All the negative things you did don't matter anymore. All the we couldn't do this during the regular season doesn't matter anymore. It's a clean slate. Hell, we saw Oklahoma. We saw an Oklahoma team last year that, man, they struggled and they sort of started getting hot down the stretch. They won the Big 12 tournament and then they played in the freaking final for the College World Series. And they weren't a great team all season. Had talent. They got hot. So let's talk about our concerns. Let's talk about our concerns for postseason. Because we're in, right? We know we're in. I think not having a dependable day 3 guy is huge for this team. Obviously, if you can, well, tournament period, you're going to have to play games. You're going to have to play 3 games. For sure, 100% in the or in the regional, you're going to play 3 games. Texas does not want to be coming out of the loser side of their regional and having as much issue and as much uncertainty with their third day guys as they have. That would be bad. So if Texas wants to somehow advance to a super regional, they absolutely have to win game 1. Not having consistency out of the bullpen. We don't know what these dudes are going to do. One game, the guy will come in out of the bullpen and set everybody down like he's the greatest thing on the planet. Next game, he'll come in, throw a bunch of wild pitches, hit a bunch of batters, walk people on 4 pitches over and over again. We just don't know what we're going to get out of this bullpen. And that's bad. That could be good, though. Not knowing is bad, but the inconsistency, again, if those guys get hot and just make it, the talent's there, right? If they just make it work, there's no telling what this team could do. Offensively, can someone step up from the shortstop position and start hitting a baseball? Right now, we're not seeing it. The top of the lineup is going to have to get hot and stay hot for 5 games, 5-6 games in the postseason if they want to make it to Omaha. Think 2018 Texas Longhorns when Clemens basically Cody Clemens basically got Texas to the College World Series by himself because he just started smashing home runs. And this team has that kind of power. This team has that kind of ability. Mitchell Daly is a dude that when he touches the ball, he can rake. I mean, he's got power. He's hit some balls this year really hard. Problem is, most time he doesn't hit the ball. He doesn't even touch the ball. I think half the time he can't even see the ball. But every single guy in this lineup can put the ball over the fence. And the top 6 guys, they can really hit the ball hard. So again, I think they're going to have to get hot. They're going to have to stay hot. This team is talented enough to make a nice run. I don't think they're a College World Series team. I'll tell you what, if David Pierce manages to get this team to the College World Series, it would be tough to say David Pierce doesn't have some kind of magic in his back pocket that when it comes postseason time, he gets his teams to play better than they actually are. Everybody talked about Augie Garrido and you know the mental side of the game, and that was a huge thing for Augie Garrido. Augie Garrido is probably, I don't know every coach, and I haven't heard a lot of, I'm going to say it because I'm a Texas fan, and Augie Garrido is one of the best. I think Augie Garrido has to be one of the top 5 like mental parts of the game guys ever. He could take a bunch of guys that, and he had good players. I'm not saying there wasn't good players at Texas, but you really look at the guys that have gone on to the major leagues and done a lot of stuff from Texas during his tenure at Texas. Most of them are pitchers. And that's Augie's game. We're going to pitch. We're going to play small ball. We're going to put pressure on your defense. And every once in a while, we're going to hit the ball over the fence. And then the next inning, that guy gets up to bat that just smoked one over the fence. I'm probably going to make him bunt because the guy in front of him got on. And there's no outs. But he was a master of getting kids to play, getting inside of their heads and helping them understand that all of this is mental. And if you master the mental side of it, you can win a lot of games, and you don't have to be flashy, and you don't have to have a lot of superstars. But if David Pierce can get this team into the College World Series, I got to think you got to start talking about what is David Pierce doing during postseason? Because that'll be 2 teams. Again, that'd be 2 teams that probably didn't have any business being at the College World Series that he got into the College World Series. It's a huge if. I mean, I don't think second week of June, I don't think we're talking about David Pierce having some kind of magic in his back pocket, but we'll see. I hope we are talking about it. I think another thing we can talk about is this team ready for SEC baseball? Let's talk about the pitching first. They're going to lose Gordon. Gordon's going to be a draft pick next year. Witt should be healthy, but we don't know what that means. We don't know if Tanner Witt is going to be the Tanner Witt we saw briefly before he was hurt his freshman year. LBJ will probably be back. So let's assume Witt can sort of, let's assume Witt gets back to the way he was before. That's 2 guys right there that you can depend on. So they got to find a third starter. I don't know what David Pierce thinks of his bullpen today, and if he thinks one of those guys can go potentially be a starter. A lot of those guys have been starters this year, and a lot of those guys have had really good starts, and a lot of those guys have also had really what the fuck is happening starts. So I don't know. And a lot of those guys are transfer guys already. I don't know. David Pierce says, let's go in the portal and try to find a third guy, or if he feels like he's got a third guy he can develop. We'll have to see. I think this though. I think next season Texas will not be worse off pitching than they are this season, and I don't think they're bad this year. Generally, even after all the shit that's happened during this Big 12 play for them and all the ups and downs with this pitching staff, I still think generally they're a pretty good pitching staff. They're not what Texas fans are used to seeing at Texas from a pitching staff perspective. But again, we're talking about Augie Garrido. You get 11 scholarships. 3 of those are going to guys that are about to be starting pitchers. So really the rest of your team gets 8 to share amongst themselves. We're not going to see that with David Pierce. That's not his philosophy, right? So got to find a solid third starter, whether we do it in the portal, whether we home grow one. That's David Pierce's mission. And then I think you look at he's got to figure out what he wants to do with all these bullpen guys. I've said it before. Still, this late in the season, there's all this switching around, and nobody knows exactly when they're coming in and what's going to be expected of them. And I don't think that's conducive to being able to mentally prepare yourself and then go out and execute. If I don't know what I'm shooting at, I can't hit the target. If I don't know what the coach expects of me week in and week out, or if it's constantly changing week in and week out, it's hard for me to hit that target. It's hard for me to execute on his expectations. So I think David Pierce, whenever the season ends this year, he's got to sit down quickly and say, here's what I know I have based off of what we saw this season. Here's my plan for next year with these guys. And then here's what I got to go get to fit in and fill the cracks, which really there's not going to be a lot. Lucas Gordon, he's gone. I think Lucas Gordon is going to be drafted. So that's really the only guy. Offense is going to take a massive hit. I mean, offensively, it could get really ugly. It could be almost like last year where 2/3 of the lineup was gone. It's not going to be that bad, but let's talk about it. You're going to lose Kennedy. He has no more eligibility. If he did, he'd come back to play baseball at Texas. That dude loves him some Texas, but I think Kennedy's done. Man, Kennedy's power numbers have just gotten really good over the last couple seasons. I think the thing that's going to hurt Kennedy is his age. Sad to say. He's still a kid, but I mean, he spent 6 years at Texas. He's what, 24? By the time that guy gets into a pro system and works his way through and develops, I mean, he could. Let's just say there's not a lot of 30-year-old rookies in Major League Baseball. So I think Kennedy has ability, and his power has gotten better. His speed is ridiculous. He's a good outfielder. He has the talent to go play, but I think his age is going to hurt him in the draft. Now, that doesn't mean he can't get in with somebody and advance really quickly and end up in the major leagues. But anyway, he's not going to be here either way. Whether he plays another freaking inning of baseball, he ain't gonna be at Texas. And then you could possibly lose Peyton Powell, who's a junior this year, Dylan Campbell, who's a junior this year, Porter Brown, who's a junior this year, and Guillemette, who's a junior this year. We've talked about those 6 guys that are hitting over 300. 5 of them I just talked about as possibilities of not being here. I think Pierce is in trouble offensively. And that doesn't mean, again, people that aren't already on the roster don't step up. But we've seen a lot of these guys that are going to be left on the roster, and they're just not. To this point, they haven't done anything that would suggest, yeah, that guy is going to step up next year and be really good. I think David Pierce's offensive transfer stuff has been kind of hit or miss. Guillemette's been a huge plus. Jack O'Dowd, not so much. Jack O'Dowd's just kind of like a steady guy. When he hits the ball, he's going to hit the ball hard. He just doesn't do that much. He's kind of like Mitchell Daly almost. He's almost. I mean, I think their batting averages are close. I think O'Dowd is hitting 270. So maybe not close. He's 50 points higher than Daly. I think Pierce is going to have to hit the portal hard for 2 outfielders, a shortstop. He's got to find a shortstop. Whether Daly comes back or not, he's got to find a kid that's an actual shortstop. And I say all these things. I have no idea what's available in the portal or what should be available in the portal, or I don't even know if people have been speculating about what's going to be available in the portal. All I do know is Texas is most likely going to be down 2 outfield, and it actually could be down 3 outfielders. They could lose the entire outfield again. Got to get a shortstop, and they need some proven bats. And I don't know what that's going to take. I don't know. I know all those guys LSU landed last year. There was a lot of talk about Texas trying to get after both of those guys, Tommy Tanks and Skeen, I believe is the name of that pitcher that came out of Air Force. They both end up at LSU, and I don't know if that was a money whip thing. I don't know. I don't know what the story is behind that, but I think Texas needs to decide if they want to really be serious about baseball in this new modern era of transfer portal and NIL. And if they do, which I would think they would, they're definitely one of the blue bloods in baseball. They're gonna have to start finding some ways to get these guys some money and get some better talent here. So that's the state of the program addressed. The state of the program is we're going to be in the tournament. We have every opportunity to get hot and stay hot as any other team that's going to be in the tournament. Join us next week. We'll do another From the Cheap Seats. We're going to have Chris from the Spurs Up Show on. I don't know what day that's going to be yet. We'll talk some SEC football and baseball. Join us on the Bullpen next week. We'll talk about this San Jose State series. And we'll do a West Virginia series preview, and we'll talk about what could possibly happen this last weekend in the Big 12 as far as who's going to win the regular season. Subscribe to the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you don't want to go to those individual places, you can go to horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can find me on TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook at Horn Takes. You can email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your comments, questions, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys have a good weekend. Hook 'em.